What if I told you a billionaire CEO was moments away from losing a $500 million deal until a quiet nanny sat down at his laptop and solved in minutes what a team of Ivy League engineers couldn't fix in weeks? What happened next changed their lives forever, right in front of the entire world. If that gave you chills, don't just scroll away. Hit subscribe right now so you never miss a story like this. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Would you have the courage to do what Lily did? And share this video with someone who needs a spark of inspiration today. Let's spread this story everywhere. The storm outside was relentless, sheets of rain hammering against the glass of the 48th floor. Lightning cracked over the Seattle skyline as Ethan Cole gripped his phone so tightly his knuckles whitened. His voice cut through the night like a blade. "Fix it, or we lose the $500 million deal. I don't care how you do it, just do it." In the silence that followed, his breathing was harsh. He slammed the phone shut and shoved back his chair. The glow from his laptop spilled across the room, illuminating lines of code racing down the screen. Fragmented, chaotic, a system on the edge of collapse. He grabbed his jacket and strode to the door, steps fast, shoulders tense. He didn't bother closing the laptop. The storm was in his head as much as outside. The deal, the investors, the weight of an empire. He couldn't afford failure. The office door clicked behind him. For a few seconds, the room was empty, except for the sound of the rain and the flicker of that glowing screen. Then, softly, the door creaked open. Lily Carter slipped in, holding Mason's tiny blue backpack in one hand. She had come only to fetch the forgotten bag before locking up for the night. Her sneakers left small prints on the polished floor as she crossed the office, glancing once at the storm outside. She reached for the bag and froze. The light from the laptop caught her eyes. Error messages flashed red. A progress bar looped endlessly, stuttering like a broken heartbeat. Her pulse spiked. She stepped closer, Mason's bag slipping from her fingers. Her reflection hovered over the screen, her brows furrowed as she scanned the mess of commands. She had seen this before. Years ago, in another life, in late nights spent poring over borrowed programming books. A flicker of something fierce sparked in her eyes. Her breath quickened. Don't get involved. Just walk away, she told herself. But the logic errors screamed at her. The system was eating itself alive, in a recursive loop. Her instincts took over. She slid into Ethan's chair, palms flat on the desk, for one sharp inhale. Then her fingers hit the keys, fast, precise, unstoppable. Her shoulders tightened as she muttered under her breath, "Bad loop. Here, fix the pointer, break the cycle." The typing became a rhythm, quick staccato beats under the storm's drum outside. Her heart pounded in sync with each keystroke. The screen began to change. She rewrote a segment, isolated a function, redirected data flow. The room was electric with tension, a race against time no one had asked her to run. A stray curl of hair slipped from her ponytail, falling into her eyes. She shoved it back impatiently and kept going. She felt that old rush, the clarity, when code finally made sense, when logic bent to her will. Lines of green replaced red. The error count dropped. The spinning loop slowed. She whispered, almost smiling, "Got you. Breathe." Then, "What the hell are you doing?" The voice cracked through the room like thunder. Lily's hands froze on the keyboard. Her heart shot into her throat. Slowly she turned. Ethan stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his jacket, his face carved with disbelief and fury. His eyes darted from her to the screen and back again. For a heartbeat, time stopped. The storm outside, the blinking cursor, her own rapid breathing. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. Her fingers hovered above the keys, trembling now. His voice dropped, sharp and cold. "Step away from that computer." And just like that, the night ignited. One accidental intrusion that would unravel everything Ethan thought he knew and reveal a truth Lily never meant to show. The storm outside still howled, but the real collision was happening inside that office. Ethan's voice sliced through the hum of servers like ice breaking. "You have no right to touch that." Lily's chair scraped against the polished floor as she shot up to her feet. Her heart pounded so hard she felt it in her ears, but her gaze stayed steady, locked on his. She wasn't trembling now, not in her voice. "Your main loop is stuck," she said, each word measured, deliberate. "It's feeding itself until it dies." Ethan's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. He took 2 sharp steps forward, the wet shoulders of his coat still dripping onto the carpet. His glare was so intense, it felt like the room itself was shrinking. "You're telling me," he said slowly, like testing the weight of every syllable, "that you understand this?" Lily didn't flinch. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. "I didn't mean to overstep," she breathed, but her tone carried more conviction than apology. "But I saw the code choking itself out. It was instinct. I just fixed it." Ethan's hand slammed down on the desk, fingers flying across the keyboard with the speed of a man desperate to prove her wrong. The screen blinked, lines compiled, systems reloaded. The spinning loop that had been haunting him for days was gone. For 3 long seconds, the only sound was the faint hum of the fan inside the laptop and the rain battering against the glass. Ethan stared at the screen, then at Lily. His expression shifted. Anger still burned there, but underneath it was something else. Confusion, and something that looked dangerously like awe. The tension was suffocating. His voice came low, edged with disbelief. "You," he muttered, eyes narrowing. "You actually fixed it." Lily's breath hitched, but she refused to shrink back. "I'm sorry," she said softly, but there was steel under it. "I just couldn't watch bad code suffer." Ethan's brow furrowed, a war raging behind his eyes. He circled the desk, moving closer, his presence imposing but uncertain. "How?" His voice cracked, then steadied, sharper this time. "How do you even know what you're looking at?" Lily's chest rose and fell quickly, but she didn't look away. "That's not important," she said, her voice quiet but unwavering. "What matters is your system isn't crashing anymore." Ethan's hands hovered above the keyboard, his mind racing faster than his fingers. The bug his entire team of top-tier engineers couldn't crush in 2 weeks. This woman had erased in minutes. His tone hardened, but his eyes betrayed him. "You're my son's babysitter, not a developer, not a consultant. You walk in here—" He stopped himself, taking a breath, as if the words were too much to process. "Do you have any idea what you just touched? That code carries contracts worth $500 million. The weight of his words hung in the air. Lily felt her stomach tighten, but her voice didn't waver. "I didn't touch your secrets. I didn't even think about the money," she said, her tone low, almost defiant. "I just saw something broken, and I fixed it, that's all." Ethan stared at her for another long beat, chest rising and falling, fingers drumming once on the desk. He couldn't tell if he wanted to throw her out or ask her how she did it. That conflict flickered in his eyes, a mix of fury, disbelief, and something else he hadn't felt in years. Curiosity. He finally straightened, brushing a hand through his damp hair. His voice dropped, quieter, but still edged. "You shouldn't have done that," he said. Lily's lips pressed together. Her heart still raced, but her chin lifted. "Maybe," she answered, "but you're welcome." The silence after that was deafening. The storm outside seemed to fade compared to the storm brewing in that room. Ethan didn't respond. Not yet. He just stared at her like she was some kind of puzzle he couldn't decide whether to solve or protect. And as Lily bent to pick up Mason's backpack from the floor, she felt his eyes follow her every move, watchful, conflicted, and burning with questions neither of them was ready to ask. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the office hours before anyone else. Sleep hadn't come easily after what happened the night before. Her words kept replaying in his head. "I just couldn't watch bad code suffer." Who was she? A babysitter who could dismantle a critical loop like it was child's play? He refused to admit it out loud, but something inside him burned with curiosity and suspicion. He needed to know if what she did was a fluke, or something far more unsettling. So, quietly, deliberately, he set a trap. Day 1. Ethan opened an old financial spreadsheet, one that everyone in his department hated. He planted a broken formula, one that would make any analysis spiral into nonsense. It was subtle, just enough to trip up even experienced analysts. Then he left the file open on his laptop and accidentally left it on the kitchen counter before leaving for a meeting. Lily arrived that afternoon to watch Mason. She passed the counter, eyes catching the screen, and paused. A faint frown crossed her face. She set down her coffee, leaned in, and began typing. Her fingers moved quickly, the kind of movement that came from someone who knew exactly where to look. A few minutes later, she tore off a yellow sticky note and pressed it onto the corner of the screen. Her neat handwriting read, "Look up isn't magic, boss." Ethan returned an hour later. He spotted the note before anything else. He stared at it, stunned for a beat, then hit enter. The broken formulas now flowed perfectly. The dashboard recalculated flawlessly. His lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. Day 2. This time, he pushed further. He crafted a small Python script, intentionally formatting it like a battlefield, tabs and spaces mixed, random indentations, messy enough to drive any coder crazy. He left the laptop open on the dining table, then waited from the hallway, pretending to be on a phone call. Lily passed by carrying Mason's toys, but the moment her eyes skimmed the screen, she stopped cold. Her expression sharpened. She set the toys down, sat in the chair, and began cleaning the chaos. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, erasing inconsistencies, aligning logic. She whispered to herself, "Indentation saves lives. Always." When she finished, she didn't say a word. Instead, she left another note stuck directly to the keyboard. Indentation saves lives. Ethan picked up the note later, reading it twice. For the first time in months, he laughed, quietly, to himself. Day 3. If she was really what he suspected, he needed to see her eye for detail beyond code. He opened an important PowerPoint pitch deck, destroyed the fonts, clashed the colors, layered in spinning animations that would make any viewer dizzy. It was a mess, a disaster, and he left it front and center on the screen before stepping out. Hours later, as he returned, the presentation looked different, clean, professional, logical. Fonts unified, colors refined, transitions smooth. Next to the laptop was another sticky note, bold and unapologetic. Comic Sans equals crime. Ethan stood in the middle of the room, holding that third note between his fingers. He stared at the screen, then back at the words written in her looping handwriting. His chest tightened. She hadn't just fixed things. She'd improved them, made them smarter, sharper, better than his team of Ivy League graduates could have done. And she hadn't asked for praise, hadn't even admitted she touched them. He sank into his chair, staring at the glowing screen. Something inside him stirred, a mix of admiration and disbelief. And for the first time, in a long time, his lips curved into a real smile. But as he tucked the notes into his jacket pocket, one thought gnawed at him. Who exactly is Lily Carter? And how many more of his assumptions was she about to shatter? 3 days after Ethan's quiet tests, the office air felt heavier than usual. A high-level strategy meeting was underway in the glass-walled boardroom. Executives murmured over graphs and timelines, tension simmering from the latest contract delays. Ethan sat at the head of the table, arms folded, eyes sharp. His mind wasn't just on the numbers. It kept drifting to the 3 sticky notes now hidden in his pocket. Grace Turner, the company's senior operations director, tapped a stack of papers against the table with the sharp precision of someone ready to strike. Her perfectly tailored blazer and clipped tone always carried weight, but today there was venom underneath. "So let me get this straight," Grace said, leaning forward, eyes locking on Ethan. "We're building strategies based on, what, anonymous fixes from outside the team?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. The other executives shifted uncomfortably. Grace's voice rose, slicing through the tension. "You're actually trusting a babysitter more than your own engineers? That's pathetic." The words dropped like stones in the room. A few executives coughed awkwardly. One whispered something under his breath. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Not yet. Outside the glass door, Lily had just arrived with Mason's lunchbox. She paused when she heard her own label, Babysitter, echo through the room like an insult. Her steps faltered. She froze, standing just out of sight, but close enough to hear every syllable. Grace kept going, a cruel smile tugging at her lips. Maybe next week we'll outsource security patches to the janitor. Why not? Seems we're running a charity for amateurs. Lily's fingers tightened around the little spiral notebook she always carried. The cardboard cover creaked under her grip. Her chest rose and fell quickly, but she didn't move. Her first instinct was to walk away, pretend she hadn't heard, keep her head down. But her legs refused to budge. Her knuckles whitened around the notebook. Her eyes burned. Ethan's voice finally cut through, low, steady, with a dangerous edge. "Grace," he said, "watch your tone." Grace laughed softly, dismissive. "I'm just stating facts. If you'd rather risk a $500 million deal on the instincts of a babysitter, be my guest. But don't expect the board to sign off when everything collapses." Lily's breath caught. She stared at the floor tiles beneath her shoes, forcing herself not to storm in. Her pulse hammered in her ears. Inside, her thoughts raced. Stay calm. They don't know you. They don't know what you can do. Her eyes flicked up through the glass, catching a glimpse of Ethan. He hadn't looked away from Grace. He hadn't defended her name, not directly. That cut deeper than the insult itself. But instead of breaking, something hardened inside her. Her shoulders straightened. Her grip on the notebook loosened just enough for her to flip it open silently, pressing her thumb against the page where she'd been sketching out another solution earlier that morning. A reminder of what she was capable of. She didn't need to speak. Not yet. She simply stood there, invisible to the room of executives, watching, listening, enduring. Inside, Ethan's fingers tapped once against the polished table. He wanted to shout back at Grace, to tell her what she didn't know, that the woman she mocked had solved problems his entire team couldn't. But he didn't. Not here, not now, not while the stakes were this high. Grace crossed her arms. "I'm right, and you know it," she said coldly. "We need real talent, not a pretty distraction." Lily's stomach twisted, but her chin lifted slightly. She would not cry. Not for Grace. Not for anyone. Her eyes hardened, the sting of humiliation transforming into something sharper. A quiet vow. She would keep doing what she did best. She would keep proving herself, line by line, fix by fix, whether they saw her or not. Ethan watched Grace for a long moment, then said nothing more. The meeting rolled on, but the air in the room was electric. Outside the glass, Lily turned, Mason's lunchbox still in her hand. Her face was calm now, almost serene, but her mind blazed. She didn't know when or how, but she knew one thing. She wouldn't let their arrogance define her worth. Rain slammed against the windows like 1,000 fists. Wind howled through the steel beams of the building, and somewhere in the distance, a transformer exploded with a sharp crack. In seconds, half the city went dark. The emergency lights flickered on in Ethan's office, a dim red glow spilling over the chaos of cables and backup drives. On the phone, his voice was hoarse, raw with panic. "We're losing everything," he shouted over the alarms blaring in the server room. "If those clients pull out, we're done. Do you understand me? Done." He tossed the phone aside, sprinting back toward the server racks. Sweat streaked down his temple, soaking through his dress shirt. His hands flew over the backup console, trying every command he knew, but the screens screamed back errors. Memory overflow, circular requests, critical failures. Ethan yanked open another panel, heart hammering in his chest. Cables sparked. The storm outside growled like a living thing. His breath came in short gasps. Think, think, think. And then, footsteps, light, quick, cutting through the noise. A beam of light swept across the room. "Ethan?" He spun around. In the glow of a flashlight stood Lily, hair damp from the storm, hoodie zipped to her neck, eyes sharp as blades. "What are you?" he started, but she didn't let him finish. "Move. Let me see it." For a moment, he just stared. Then, with no better plan, he stepped aside. Lily knelt in front of the main laptop, her flashlight balanced against her shoulder, hands already on the keys. "What's the status?" she demanded, without looking up. "Everything's crashing," Ethan said, voice shaking. "Every server handshake is freezing the others. I've rebooted twice, but..." "Stop talking." Her fingers flew. Commands scrolled in rapid succession. Her brows knitted tighter with each second. "These logs! Damn it, they're stuck in a handshake loop," she snapped. "Restart them in this order." Ethan crouched beside her, eyes flicking between her screen and his own console. "Repeat it. Primary, then mirror 1, then mirror 2. Wait 5 seconds between each. Do not panic and hit them all at once." His hands moved, fast but careful. Sweat dripped off his jaw as he counted aloud. 1, 2, 3, go. The hum of the servers stuttered, then roared back to life in uneven waves. The alarms still wailed, but some of the screens began to stabilize. Ethan's pulse thundered in his ears. "Mirror 2, now!" Lily's voice was razor sharp. "Check the memory cache. Dump the overflow now, Ethan." He obeyed instantly, fingers slamming the keys. "Dumped. Watch the latency." "Latency's dropping." Outside, lightning lit up the city, thunder shaking the walls. But inside that room, the only thing that mattered was the frantic rhythm of their commands and the whir of the machines clawing their way back from the brink. One by one, the error lights blinked out. Green indicators began to glow across the board. Ethan stared at the screens, chest heaving, unable to believe what he was seeing. It's working," he whispered. Lily didn't stop typing. "Not done yet. Run the diagnostics. Now!" He ran them. Numbers cascaded down. Stable, stable, stable. A final alert flashed, then disappeared. Silence. For a moment, the only sound was the distant storm. The alarms had stopped. The screens glowed steady blue. The system was alive. Ethan let out a shaky laugh, adrenaline still coursing through him. He turned to Lily, flashlight still propped on her shoulder, her face illuminated in sharp angles. "You," his voice cracked, "you just saved all of it." Lily finally leaned back, breath heavy, eyes still locked on the screen. "I told you," she said quietly. "Bad systems don't scare me." He stared at her, heart pounding. In that instant, in that storm-lit room, Ethan knew. This wasn't just a babysitter. This was someone extraordinary. The server room was suddenly still. The only sound, the distant drumming of rain and the low hum of machines now running flawlessly. A soft chime broke through the silence, sharp and clear. All systems normal. Ethan froze, staring at the glowing monitors as if they might vanish at any second. The flashing red errors were gone. Green status bars stretched across every screen like calm after chaos. He let out a long, shaky breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His shoulders slumped as the weight of hours, days, of fear slid off him all at once. He turned slowly, eyes drawn to the narrow beam of light still cutting through the dim room. Lily stood there, flashlight angled toward the console, her hoodie damp from the storm, a faint smear of dust on her cheek. She wasn't looking at him. Her gaze lingered on the code still scrolling across the screen, as if waiting for a final confirmation that her fix would hold. Ethan took a step closer, then another, his heartbeat loud in his ears. He didn't think. He just moved, drawn by something raw and undeniable. When he reached her, he didn't speak right away. His hand, still trembling from adrenaline, reached out and closed gently around hers. Lily's head snapped up, startled. Her eyes widened in the dim light, caught between confusion and something deeper she tried to hide. His voice came low, rough around the edges, but steady. "You saved my company, and something in me I thought was gone." For a heartbeat, the storm outside seemed to disappear. It was just the two of them in that glow of machines and the soft circle of light. Lily felt her chest tighten. Her pulse quickened so hard it almost hurt. But then, slowly, she pulled her hand free. Not with anger, not with rejection, but with a quiet that spoke louder than words. Her fingers slipped from his, leaving a fleeting warmth in his palm. Her eyes flickered, shadows of emotion she refused to let spill over. For a moment, Ethan thought she might say something, anything, but she didn't. She drew in a breath, steadying herself, then looked back to the screen as if reminding herself why she was here. That silence was heavy, but it wasn't cold. It wrapped around them like something fragile, something unspoken, but very real. Ethan stood still, his own breath shallow, fighting the urge to reach for her again. Lily finally broke the silence, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "You should get some rest. Systems are stable now." Ethan watched her turn toward the door, the flashlight beam swaying across the floor. She paused in the doorway, the storm's glow outlining her silhouette. For a second, she looked back over her shoulder. Their eyes met, his still searching, hers guarded but undeniably moved. Then she was gone, leaving him alone in the hum of a room she had just saved. Ethan sank into the nearest chair, his hands running through his hair as he replayed her words, her touch, that fleeting connection. Outside, the storm was breaking apart, the city lights flickering back to life. But inside him, something new had just begun, fragile and powerful, leaving him with a truth he couldn't ignore. He didn't just want her brilliance, he wanted her. The ballroom at the Coltech Innovation Summit blazed with lights, cameras sweeping across an audience of over 2,000. The hum of anticipation buzzed in the air, a sea of suits, press badges, and smartphones raised high to livestream the biggest tech event of the quarter. On the massive LED screen behind the stage, the Coltech logo pulsed like a heartbeat. Ethan stepped up to the podium, the CEO everyone knew, sharp, commanding, untouchable. His prepared speech scrolled silently on the teleprompter, but his mind wasn't on the words. As applause faded, he scanned the crowd. His chest tightened. It was now or never. He took a breath and set the papers aside. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice carried through the speakers, smooth at first, then steadier, deeper. "I came here tonight to talk about innovation, revenue, the future of Coltech. But before I do, I need to tell you something far more important." The crowd stilled. Phones lifted higher. Ethan gripped the sides of the podium, feeling his heartbeat quicken. There are people behind the scenes who never get their names in headlines. People who solve problems while the rest of us sleep. And one of them saved this company. Not once, not twice, 3 times. Murmurs rippled across the ballroom. Executives exchanged puzzled glances. Ethan's gaze swept the crowd until he found her, halfway back, standing near the aisle in a simple navy dress, her hair tucked behind one ear, clearly not expecting to be noticed. "Lily Carter," Ethan said, voice steady but laced with emotion, "please join me on stage." Lily froze. For a heartbeat, she thought she'd misheard him. But then hundreds of heads turned, whispers rising like a sudden tide. Her pulse roared in her ears. She felt her cheeks burn. No, not here, she thought. But Ethan didn't look away. He waited. Lily drew in a shaky breath and took a step forward. He motioned gently, encouraging her. Step by step, she moved down the aisle, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Phones angled toward her. Reporters whispered furiously. A few people clapped hesitantly, unsure of what was unfolding. When she reached the steps, Ethan extended his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His grip was firm, reassuring. The moment her foot touched the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. Ethan turned back to the microphone, his voice stronger now. "You look at me and see a CEO, a man who built a tech empire. But what you don't see are the people who catch me when I fall. Lily Carter." He gestured toward her, and she instinctively shook her head, eyes wide. But he kept going. Learned programming not from Stanford or MIT, but from library books and free online courses. She fixed what my team of Ivy League engineers could not, and she did it without ever asking for recognition. Gasps and murmurs swept through the hall. Lily stared at him, caught between disbelief and an ache in her chest she couldn't name. "She saved a $500 million contract during a citywide blackout," Ethan said, his voice thickening with emotion. "She rebuilt critical systems under pressure that would break most of us. And she reminded me," he paused, swallowing hard, "that intelligence, loyalty, and courage don't come with a diploma. They come from heart." For a beat, the crowd was silent, holding its collective breath. Then, as if ignited by a spark, the entire room erupted. Applause crashed over them like a wave. People stood, cheering, clapping until their palms stung. Reporters shoved cameras forward, flashes lighting up the stage. The live stream chat exploded with messages. "Goosebumps. Who is she? This is incredible. Lily stood frozen in the center of it all, her hands trembling, tears pricking her eyes. She wasn't someone who liked attention, but right now, under those blinding lights, she felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. Ethan leaned closer, his voice low enough only she could hear. You deserved this a long time ago. Her throat tightened. She managed a small nod, blinking rapidly as the applause thundered on. Out in the audience, strangers wiped at their eyes. On screens across the country, viewers felt a chill race through their arms. It wasn't just a tech story anymore. It was something bigger, something that made people believe again in hidden brilliance, in second chances, in the power of someone unexpected to change everything. And as Lily looked out over the standing crowd, tears glimmering under the lights, she felt it too, a spark of pride, of hope, of something warm blooming in her chest that she hadn't felt in years. The thunderous applause from the Coltech summit still echoed in the cavernous ballroom when Ethan took a step closer to Lily. The crowd was still on their feet, phones lifted, flashes popping like fireworks. Lily wiped at her eyes quickly, trying to gather herself. But Ethan wasn't done. He moved away from the podium and toward center stage. The MC looked startled, whispering to a crew member. The live stream comments scrolled like wildfire. Then, in front of 2,000 stunned attendees and countless viewers online, Ethan Moore, sharp, untouchable CEO, did something no one expected. He dropped to one knee. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lily's hand flew to her mouth, her heart slamming in her chest. Ethan pulled out a sleek, black laptop no bigger than a book. With one click, the screen lit up, and in bold white letters against a deep blue background appeared the words, Lily Carter, will you be my co-CEO in life? The room went silent for half a second, the kind of silence that sucks the air out of your lungs, before exploding into a tidal wave of cheers and camera flashes. Lily's knees wobbled. Her breath caught, as tears spilled over. Unstoppable now. She shook her head in disbelief, laughing through sobs. Ethan, you're insane, she choked out, her voice trembling. But a small, clear voice pierced through the noise. Say yes, Lily. Mason, Ethan's little boy, was standing on a chair in the front row, waving both arms wildly, eyes wide with excitement. The crowd laughed, the sound warm and bright, amplifying the moment. Lily looked from Mason's hopeful face to Ethan's steady, earnest eyes. Every memory of late nights debugging, every storm they'd weathered, every moment she thought no one would ever see her value, came rushing back all at once. And now, here he was, not just seeing her, but choosing her. Her tears blurred the lights, but her voice was clear. Yes. The word wasn't loud, but it hit like lightning. The crowd roared, applause booming so hard the stage itself seemed to tremble. Ethan's jaw clenched with emotion as he stood, closed the laptop, and pulled Lily into his arms. The kiss wasn't planned, wasn't polished for cameras. It was raw, full of relief, gratitude, and love that had been building quietly through every sleepless night and every daring fix. The crowd went wild. People whistled, clapped, even stomped their feet. Mason jumped up and down on his chair, shouting at the top of his lungs, "That's my new mom! That's my Lily!" Reporters surged closer, flashes creating a strobe of white light. But Ethan didn't care. He kept his arms wrapped around her, forehead against hers, whispering just loud enough for her to hear over the chaos. You turned my whole world around, Lily Carter. And I'm never letting go. She laughed through tears, pressing her hands to his cheeks. Just don't expect me to fix every bug in your life, she teased, voice breaking with joy. Deal, he murmured, brushing her hair back gently, as long as you're beside me. The applause didn't stop. The live stream flooded with heart emojis, with comments like, "This is the best thing I've ever seen. I'm crying in my office, and true love is real." Up on that stage, beneath the blinding lights and the roar of thousands, Lily felt something she hadn't felt in years. Home. Ethan felt it too. And Mason, cheering louder than anyone, sealed it with a grin that could light up the whole city. The world had come to see a tech summit. They left believing in something bigger: love, hope, and the kind of brilliance that changes everything. No matter your age or background, this story reminds us that true value isn't measured by diplomas or titles. It's revealed through courage, persistence, and the willingness to act when it matters most. Lily's journey shows that knowledge can be built from library shelves and late nights, and that even quiet efforts can change lives in powerful ways. In our own lives, we should never underestimate our own skills or the impact we can have on others. What's a hidden talent you've used to help someone? Share it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more inspiring stories.